Hi guys, welcome to my channel Lush Gardener. I hope you guys are fine and are safe at home. So guys, today we're going to be talking about a very interesting and hardy trailing succulent, because I know a lot of you guys do love trailing succulents, but unfortunately most of the trailing succulents like string of pearls, string of dolphins, string of bananas, string of hearts, they're quite difficult to handle. They are very delicate and fragile, but this is one of the trailing succulent that is quite hardy as per what I have noticed, because I have happened to grow all the trailing succulents and this has been so far the best and the easiest one to grow. So today we'll be talking about Chrysanthemum capensis, also known as ruby necklace. This plant is native to South Africa. Now if you're a beginner with succulents and you want to add in some trailing succulents, then this is one that I would recommend because it's very hardy compared to the other trailing succulents. Another best feature about this trailing succulent is that it tends to change color when it is exposed to morning direct sunlight. It will get reddish purple stem. That's wherein the name tends to come ruby necklace, because even the leaves will start turning reddish in color when it is exposed to too much of light. Now here you can see these also tend to put out a lot of tiny yellow flowers. So you can imagine the combination of red leaves and these yellow flowers. It's going to look an amazing combination. But this succulent needs a lot of light. You cannot place it indoors, you cannot keep it in shade, or you cannot keep it in partial shade. If this particular succulent does not receive a good amount of light, it will turn green in color, like the one that you can see right now. This is getting enough light, but it is not in form of direct sunlight. Also, you can notice that there is a lot of stretching on this trailing succulent. You can see that the stem is stretched a lot. You can see that there is a lot of gap between the leaves. This indicates that the succulent is not getting a lot of light. So the reason behind that is because I'm using a shade cloth, so there is no direct sunlight. It's only indirect sunlight or filtered sunlight what this succulent is receiving. So they have all reverted back to green in color, and there is a lot of stretching. But as you can see, the upper portion is much more compact because this place receives a good amount of sunlight, but as the succulent is trailing lower, the sunlight is less, so there is a lot of stretching. However, I have another ruby necklace that's placed in this plastic pot that I will be stressing and showing you how the color changes. This one is receiving a good amount of light, but again it is not in direct sunlight. It's not receiving a lot of direct sunlight. It's just managing to receive a little bit of sunlight. So you can see there is not much of stretching on this succulent. So what we'll do is I will move this succulent, the potted succulent, onto a new place wherein it can receive a good amount of morning direct sunlight, and you will be able to see how much of difference in color. So it's going to take some time for the succulent to stress. So in the meantime, we can talk about propagation and how to multiply this succulent. It's very simple to multiply the succulent. All you need to do is cut any part of the stem. Over here I am cutting the stretched part because I'm going to get a good piece of the stem. Now as you can see, I have got a very good part of the stem. All I need to do is put it into the soil, but right now I won't be adding it into the soil because I am in the monsoon season and it keeps raining a lot, so I do not want to put it in wet soil. So what I will do is I will just lay it on top of the soil so that it dries, and apart from that I will also wait for the roots to appear. So it's been a couple of days now. It's time to repot that cutting that I had initially cut. You can see the pot size is very small and I have already added soil into it. And let me show you how the cutting looks right now. You can see the cutting has stressed a lot because it was outside the soil. It was not in the soil, but the root is present right now. You can also see there are a lot of aerial roots, which means that the succulent is looking out for moisture, or it's looking out for water, so it's sending out a lot of aerial roots. So this is the right time I can put it into the soil. So what I'm going to do is, with the help of this toothpick, I'm going to make a small cavity in the soil and just put the root part into the soil, and that's it. We are done with the cutting of repotting of the cutting. So after the main root is inside the soil, I will now place the succulent on the soil. I'm going to try and put the aerial root towards the soil so that it digs into the soil, and it will be much faster for this cutting to adapt to the soil and start growing. Now remember guys, I will not be adding any water right now because I have just repotted. The soil is already moist. As I said, that it's been raining from a couple of days, so the soil is slightly moist, so I won't be adding in any more water. I will wait for a few days and then water this cutting. So coming back to the succulent that we had kept for stressing in morning direct sunlight, I had acclimated it for a week or so and then put it out in direct morning sunlight. Now this particular succulent receives direct morning sunlight for 5 to 6 hours after acclimation. So it's been almost 2 to 3 weeks, and you can see there is a major difference what it looked earlier and right now. The color has certainly gotten more dark. Now this is how it looks after 4 weeks. It has been still sitting in morning direct sunlight. I have cut down on the watering, so you can see there is a lot of difference in the leaf color. The entire structure of the succulent is completely changed, but you can also notice that the leaves have started to wrinkle. So I am not going to stress anymore. I will not push this succulent any further to stress. I will do this maybe in winters, but right now the climate is very unpredictable. It tends to get quite hot, and you can see the succulent has stressed, but the leaves are also starting to wrinkle. So this is the limit that I can stress it to. I'm not going to push it any further, because if I stress it even more, it might damage the succulent. So I think I should stop stressing it more. I will start watering it very soon, but I just wanted to give you an idea how the succulent looks right now. Today it's quite cloudy, so it might rain, so I have left it out in the rain so that the rainwater can give it a good amount of nourishment and rejuvenate the soil. But right now it is very stressed. Apart from this, I also have a small Graptosedum bronze and I have Echeveria PVN that are sharing this pot. Talking about the pot size, you can go for a minimum pot size of 3 inches of depth, or you can go for a maximum of 5 inches of depth. Do not go for a very large pot, and ensure that the pot has a drain hole. You can go with any material of pot, plastic, terracotta, concrete, ceramic or clay pots, but ensure that it has a drain hole, because these guys do not like to be sitting in wet or soggy soil. Now that brings us to another question: what kind of soil they prefer? They prefer the regular succulent soil mix. If you're not aware about it, or if you want to know how to make this soil, I will put the link in the I button on the top right corner. You can check out the soil mix recipe. So they prefer their soil to be loose, porous, well draining. They do not like to be sitting in wet and soggy soil. Now again, there is a small difference in the soil mix. If you belong to a place which is very dry, you have a very dry climate, then you want to maintain a slight moisture in the soil, but again not soggy soil. And if you belong to a place that is very humid, or if you belong to a coastal area, then you want to keep the soil dry before watering it again. So guys, these are the small adjustments that you will have to do according to the climate that you belong to. Now talking about dormancy, ruby necklace does not go into complete dormancy, but it will slower its growth during the winter months, and when the climate gets warm, it will get into its active growing period. So with this, you'll be able to understand is when it is right time to propagate and multiply. But again, it's not necessary. You can even propagate and multiply ruby necklace during the winter months. The only difference is that the growth rate will be slightly slow. Another important thing, whenever you're doing any kind of cuttings, let the cut callus before you put it into the soil. To be on the safer side, I would always suggest you to let the cutting stay on top of the soil until it starts to root. Don't worry, the succulent cutting will not die or will not get dehydrated. The only thing is you will start noticing a lot of wrinkles on the leaves, which indicates that it needs water. But before that, the roots will appear. But again, whenever you're doing a cutting and you're keeping it to callus, ensure that it's not kept in direct sunlight. It always has to be kept in indirect bright light, which is slightly cooler, so that the dehydration does not happen faster. Now, talking about fertilizers, just like other succulents, if you do not add any fertilizers, it's absolutely fine. But if you want to add any fertilizers, you can go for a liquid based fertilizer. Now, as you know, during the winters, the growth is very slow, so you might want to avoid any fertilizers during that period. But during the warmer months, when there is active growth, you can do a dose of liquid fertilizers diluted in water. You can do it probably once a month or once in 2 months. But again, if you do not want to fertilize, it's absolutely fine. They will still do okay because at the end of the day, they are part of succulent family. So guys, I hope that this video on ruby necklace was helpful to you. If it was, please hit the like button. And if you're new, please consider subscribing to my channel. Until then, take care, stay safe and keep propagating.